don't do cheesy intros, so
Oh, don't you? Oh.
no, I could do. Welcome back to another episode of Doing It for Attention. I told you I don't do cheesy intros, and I'm joined by the
Fine.
one and only Lamps, Emma Lampert. Why Lamps? Just because the surname shortened? Is that what the friends call you?
Surname shortened, always have been,
Simple.
has been since for a
Simple.
very long time.
Nice.
So I've just always gone by Lamps. Yeah.
Awesome. So currently VP of Customer at Ably, as you corrected me earlier, which is great.
Yeah.
6
Yeah.
months in. Awesome. And actually, I think when we originally connected, you were kind of venturing into like the fractional side as well, or is that something you still do on like a consultancy basis? Or do you just not have
I
time?
was dipping in and out. I don't have time to do fractional at the moment. Gosh, no. I was dipping in and out. I was doing a bit of consultancy and kind of trying a few different things. It was quite fun. I quite enjoyed it. I think the thing that I really missed from less so fractional, more kind of consultancy, was that it's really fun talking to people about their problems and giving them ideas of how they can solve them. But I really missed actually doing it.
Yeah.
So I went back and found a team that were focused on growth and kind of needed my expertise and my help. And I'm
Awesome.
enjoying the delivery part of it.
Yeah. I think fractional didn't exist a few years ago. It was contracting, right? That's just how it was referred to. And I think what happened is we kind of went through this period of there was a lot of fallout within customer success. So there were a lot more leaders trying to figure out, okay, what do I do next? And I think there was like a bit of a flood, to be fair, of fractional, and everyone became an influencer on social media. What do you think about that?
I think it's really interesting. I think my biggest challenge with customer success as an industry throughout the years, because I've been doing it for a lot longer than I'd like to admit, is that we've never unified on what it actually is.
Yeah.
Like if I said to you I was a VP of sales, you'd know exactly what that meant. Whereas customer success could be anything from like solution architecture to support to account management, all of these things. And I think where everybody's got an opinion, there's kind of two camps, right? You're technical or you're commercial, and then there's the people in the middle who, this might be unfair, but I feel like aren't really saying much.
Yeah.
And then I think, everyone can be an influencer. I think everybody's welcome to have part of the conversation, but I think in customer success, we really need to nail what our value proposition is. I think it's funny that we talk about them all the time, but yet very few of us are quite succinct on why we do what we do and how we do it. And therefore LinkedIn is quite an interesting place sometimes.
Yeah, it's a bit of an echo chamber. And sometimes it's
Totally.
just the regurgitated sort of same stuff. And that's why the whole reason I put this podcast together is to actually bring voices forward that maybe sometimes just aren't actually sharing thoughts and opinions. And it might be a hiring manager I've worked with that's never posted on LinkedIn before, as an example. But when you're speaking to them and they're defining what success looks like for the business, you're like, this is really good stuff. But you guys are typically busy, so there's only so much time you can put into posting on LinkedIn. But I guess putting you on the spot then, how would you kind of define customer success in your world? Like, what does it look like? And is there like a thread that runs through what it should look like for other organizations?
I think standard customer success answer, I think it depends. I think for me, customer success is the alignment of value and outcomes with the customer. So every customer's buying software or infrastructure in my case because they want to achieve a thing. And I think the point of customer success is to align them with the value that they bought into and making sure they're getting it. And how you do that, you can either go down the more commercial route, which is the route that I typically tend to favor, or the more technical route if you have a really technical product. But ultimately, it's our job to make sure that customers are getting out what they wanted when they went in.
Yeah.
And then defining what that means to our business. Because I think the one thing that we often forget as well, and this is kind of customer centricity 101, is actually your biggest customer is your CEO. Like, define what you do for them. Define how any of this stuff that you do matters. Whether you are talking to someone about API integrations all day, or whether you're like measuring ROIs, why does that matter? And how can you kind of define and prove that there's a point to it in terms of how it impacts your GRR and your NRR and your cost of acquisition and all of those sorts of things. So I think for me, the thread that goes through it is the so what, because your customers have a so what. No one's doing any of this stuff for fun. And then why would I bother wasting all of my time if I can't then turn up to a board meeting and be like, I sent 100 emails this month. My GRR went up by 10%. Like, those two things aren't correlated. So it's always the value for everyone involved, I suppose.
Yeah, it's a really challenging role, actually, and it's become, I'd say, more spotlighted in the last couple of years, because I think a lot of people, and I say this all the time, but a lot of people would rush to hire for CS without kind of defining for their business what it means, but trying to seek answers in other organizations. It might be a competitor that's doing it, and they might go, right, we need to hire someone from a competitor. And actually the problem you're trying to solve in your business is not akin to the way they recruit and what they need in their organization, like different support structures, different stage of where the business is at. So it's really challenging, and that's the kind of nuanced bit of it, which makes it hard to kind of define exactly what CS is. But I think it's, you kind of said it, and it's shortened even more by, you probably seen some of the stuff from a chap that's can be quite divisive because he's quite candid, but Dave Jackson, who's an awesome CS, I'd say, guru, really, that actually built a business, and exited twice, I think. Not to plug him too much, he's got a book there somewhere. But his definition is customers' success. So customer success is customers' success, and it's kind of that's it. That's the definition. And then how that's built is really dependent on your business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Awesome.
And I think, I agree.
So the key thing I want to talk about today, and sorry to bring back the trauma, is and it may be very different, actually. A lot of the time when I speak to hiring managers, they're finding it quite challenging. It's why they use companies like ABR, massive plug. But it's a challenging kind of landscape to recruit within at the moment. So I'd love to understand your kind of experience and kind of talk that through at a high level, and hopefully, for any people currently watching that are either hiring or they're entering the market to look for new opportunities, it just gives them some kind of tidbits to walk away and go, great, okay, maybe that's where we're not quite getting it right, and this is what we can change. So yeah, talk me through it. Like, what's the general thoughts on hiring right now, and what does your mind immediately go to when you think about it?
Empathy, man. I've got such high empathy for anyone who's in the job market. I think that's the thing, right? It's tougher than I've ever seen it, certainly in tech, specifically within CS. So I totally get the mindset of everybody who's sitting there applying for jobs and hammering through the applications every day. And that's kind of been top of mind for me in the most recent round of hiring I've done, is that, like, all of these people deserve responses, and whether or not I can send them personal responses is a question of bandwidth. But like, for job seekers, I've never really seen it as hard as it is right now. And then compounded with that, I think there's a level of not specificity that just kind of overrides everything. I think one of the biggest challenges is that, to your point about what organizations actually need from CS, the job specs are too vague. And they're not really giving anybody much of a direction in terms of the type of person you want. And then when I spend ages writing a really specific job spec, because there's so many people on the market, the people that are coming in are just not really paying attention to certainly the obvious, but definitely the subtle things in the spec itself as to whether or not they'd be a match. So I think it's like a perfect storm of, I want a unicorn, I am a unicorn, and no one's kind of really talking about the so what, which I mentioned already. And I think it's, I'm getting an AI to write my CV, you're screening my CV with your AI, we're kind of all missing the point. And I think it's just a really tough time at the moment. So my primary focus, as I've gone through it most recently, is, how can I be the most human? Because I get that that's the rough part in this particular instance right now. Yeah.
And given your role in the business, speaking really honestly, what percentage of time do you really allocate to recruitment on a weekly basis?
I'm really lucky. I've got a great HR partner who has been screening a lot of CVs. Awesome. I haven't really had to do that myself. So it's been pretty low. I've had the kind of top 10%, maybe less than that, have come through my door. I suppose while I'm actively hiring, it's anywhere between 10 and 30%, depending on what phase we're in. So screening always takes a bit longer because there's more to read. Interviewing feels like it takes longer, but it probably doesn't actually, comparatively.
Yeah. And how many CVs would you say have come through for one role? And I'm assuming it was a CS hire, wasn't it? It's like CSM.
Yeah, strategic. So I wanted someone
Yeah.
senior, someone strategic. It was a CS, or it is a CSM. I would probably say we've had between 400 and 500 CVs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And the brutal question is, what percentage of those 500 CVs would fit the bill?
I think in total, I've interviewed at first stage, so they've made it to hiring manager screen, 15 people.
Wow. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is crazy.
Okay, so I guess to unpick that then, what's missing, and you probably touched on it anyway, the kind of vagueness of applications in general, but you're being quite clear about what you want within the role and making it more obvious, right, when you're advertising.
I'm trying, yeah.
So what do you think's kind of missing?
I think it's specificity. If I was a CSM looking for a role, I would be looking for ones that I knew I could win when there's so many people in the market. So, for instance, a lot of the direct reach out I had on LinkedIn, and I loved it. It wasn't, like, I definitely wasn't bombarded. I've heard horror stories of people being completely bombarded.
Yeah.
And I did try and reply to everyone who sent me a message, but I would say that of the vast majority of people who sent me a message, they just weren't ideal candidates because of location, because of years of experience, because of type of product that they've used. When I've written in the job spec that I need someone who's got experience of talking to VPs of engineering and developers, someone who's come from pure HR tech. You know, it's great experience, but wrong stakeholder type.
Yeah, very different.
And the market is so busy right now with candidates that you might be the best person in the world, but there's someone else who's got that experience that I'm looking for specifically. Yeah. Again, years of experience is just a really obvious one. If I'm looking for someone senior and you're either coming into CS or you've got 2 years experience, you're gonna have an uphill struggle to sell yourself to me in terms of your seniority level. And then again, UK remote is not the same as EU or global remote.
Yeah.
And it's just really hard. It's hard to continuously say to people, we're not sponsoring. We don't have the ability to do that.
Yeah.
We also can't offshore remote people. So yeah, I feel like some of the really basic things would qualify. If I was looking for a CS role, I'd be qualifying out much more rigorously on things that are just like the first hurdle you fall at typically.
Yeah, I think sometimes people over-index on volume and kind of under-index on quality, and it's probably quite reactionary to there's that kind of panic of I need to secure something, and when there's a lot more people on the open market and you see the application numbers, it's it's like buying a lottery ticket, isn't it? I'll chuck a few quid in, and if it comes off, great, but I'm not going to hold my breath. And your point on actually, can I win this opportunity? If you're looking for a strategic CSM, there's a strategy behind that, right? So you can kind of slow down a little bit and have a look and go, okay, this is kind of what I offer. And I always say to candidates, and I mean it really respectfully, you have to think of yourself as a product. And if I was looking to buy at the moment, would I fit that description? In any other circumstances, if you were looking to buy a car and someone put out there, I'm looking for a red Ford Focus, and you sent them an email and said, oh, hi, I'm a transit van salesperson. I've got a fleet of white transit vans. Yeah. And we have to ship them from India. How does that sound? There's just massive misalignment, right? And I think that's causing a little bit of friction and frustration between both sides, because on one side, hiring managers are getting bombarded with irrelevant applications, but on the other side, a lot of businesses aren't investing the time to project, what exactly do we need in this position, and what are the steps you need to take to kind of, capture my interest. So it's, they're at loggerheads really in a lot of instances.
Totally. Yeah.
Fine. Okay. Fine. So I'm assuming you're still kind of in the process of hiring at the moment. So
hopefully coming to the end of it.
Cool. Hopefully. So how many stages do you typically put into your recruitment process?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
Well, 3 with 4 separate conversations.
Okay. Fine. And do you do like an assessment part within that as well?
Yes, I always have real mixed feelings about assessments, because there's a level of how much effort are you expecting people to put into this up front, but I felt like for a strategic role it was necessary. So there was a kind of there was a hiring manager screen, which was more of an informal kind of vibe check. Then a presentation task.
Cool.
And a kind of present me what you think strategic CS looks like. And then the third stage is a culture check with a couple of other people from the team. And then a chat with the CEO.
I think it's a good process. Yeah, it's really succinct. It's not kind of ridiculous hurdles. And I also think there is an element of, I always say, hire fast. You don't want to lose good talent. Mm-hmm. But there has to be a period of kind of mutual investment in both sides. And I think sometimes if you hire too quickly, I think both sides need to almost, I always use analogies, but it's a bit like dating, right? You don't want to go with the first person you're dating, so you kind of need to explore a little bit. Oh, I could probably cut that out anyway. There's going to be a compilation of all the cringy stuff I've said. Just
totally. But I can remember a couple of years ago when I was hiring for a different role, the first person I spoke to I thought was amazing, and I was convinced that I needed to interview another 5 or 6 people just so I could baseline. And we tried to do that, and the quality of the people that were coming through wasn't great, and the market wasn't massive, to be honest, for what we were looking for. And the kind of talent partner that I was working with at the time was like, you know what the answer is, right? You don't need to baseline loads of people. We could go for weeks and weeks and weeks. And honestly, best hire I ever made, and that was the first person I met. So I don't know what that says about my dating life.
No, I think as long as there's always going to be an element of gut feeling, but gut isn't built on nothing. It's built on experience. It's built on wins, losses. It's something that you developed over time throughout your tenure. And I would always say that as long as you've tested and kind of validated that individual, again, what are you waiting for? It doesn't mean you can't meet the perfect match on the first date if it's not the first person you've ever met in your entire life.
Yeah.
So
I think that's probably a good sign of tenure of leadership as well, because we've all been there, right? When you've not been a manager or a leader for very long, and you're terrified of making a bad hire, and you're like, the fact is that most people are probably just trying to do a good job, and sometimes it doesn't work out, and you have to go through that process. But you're right, I much prefer the approach of, if everything feels good and there's good evidence to back up my assertions here, why should you have a 12-stage process? It's really unreasonable.
You say 12-stage process. I've actually seen horror stories of companies with 12-stage processes over a 3-month period. Usually it's the category king businesses that they get thousands of applications. It's usually more technical positions. They put them through a ridiculous round of interviews. A lot of the time they're not talking about salary until really later on in the process. At that point you're all in, you're invested. So it's
rough.
It's rough. It's not widespread, but it's candidly it's not ideal. I'm going to ask you a fairly controversial question, actually, and you don't have to answer it. When you see a candidate on LinkedIn with the green open to work banner, do you feel less inclined to talk to them or more inclined to talk to them? Or does it matter regardless?
I don't think it matters. I think I'm fine with the open to work banner. I think it's stupid that people would be like, oh, well, it's what I can't remember. It's like, oh, it screams desperation. I think that's nonsense. And I think it comes back to what I was saying before. You're a human, a high empathy. Why would you do that? It doesn't make a difference. People are in all sorts of situations, especially now, for all sorts of reasons. I don't think it makes a difference either way. I would want to talk to somebody who, was a good fit and had a high value prop in their opening line, quite frankly. Regardless of green banner.
It's interesting, and it is quite controversial because, speaking very openly, especially US companies that we've been kind of privy to, I would say, sometimes they will specify that they do not want to see candidates with open to work, which it's very hard then to support that type of business. My view is always it's a two-sided process when you're interviewing, and there is a concern, when candidates are open to work, and this is not my view, but there is a concern that they're in lots of processes, it's saturated, everyone knows they're looking now, so they're going to have 5 or 6 different things lined up, etc., and that can be kind of a bit of a turn off. But then if you're a good business and you've identified a good person, then again, it's also your job to sell that opportunity to that individual and why they should pick you if they do have multiple processes. So
100%.
it's a polarizing topic, and it always comes up. So I thought I'd ask the question. Good to sit in the middle on that.
Yeah, I have no strong feelings about open to work.
So when you're receiving profiles, obviously you're getting kind of the best of the bunch because they're being pre-screened. Is there like a common thread that you would see when kind of looking at profiles, that maybe something that was missing? Because obviously you've got the HR screener pushing them through, so you've kind of given them the brief, this is what I need to see, and this is what we need to extract from that first conversation. But even taking feedback from them, is there like a common theme?
Yeah, I suppose it's good alignment with the types of personas that we work with from a customer perspective. And then I'm very focused on results and outcomes.
Yeah.
So I want to see that, and I want to see that on CVs. I think it's been very apparent in what's been coming through from as part of the application process, but I would say from the folks that have been successful in their direct LinkedIn outreach to me, it's been ones who have really sung about their results up front, which surprisingly super low number of people do that. So that's the one thing that I would say stands out. If I want to know that you did 145% NRR, I want to know how you did that. And if you don't tell me that, I can't consider it as part of the 60 messages I'm replying to today. So I would say that it's that alignment, that fit, that kind of persona. It doesn't always make a difference, but like I said, when the market's so busy, I feel like I can be specific. I want industry experience. That's quite useful. And then it's the outcome focus.
Yeah. Really interesting. Most of the profiles, I say most actually, it has changed, but when you think about the volume of CVs that will come through, they do lack the outcomes. And you put a post not so long ago, it's a few weeks back actually, it was like outcomes. Like that's the thing that you really need to see. And it goes back to the kind of so what, doesn't it? You've made lots of statements, but okay, like, so what? What does that mean? What does that translate to? And it's all a bit too kind of broad brush. And I think the messages that I get frequently, and I would say this as a point of learning for anyone, the messages are about them, not about you and the opportunity. So I'll get messages through to say, hey, I've seen the role for a CSM. I'd love to find out more about it. Can we arrange a call? And unfortunately, it's a no, because I need to understand kind of the why. Because when you've got 15 calls scheduled for a day back to back, it's really difficult to allocate time to have a high level conversation where you and I probably both know, based on the data and the CVs coming through and the messages we get, that part of that conversation might be, oh, well, sorry, you need to be in London 2 days a week, or you need to be here, you need to do this. You need to have experience with, developer stakeholders, you need to be technically, and that's the bit we don't have the time to do. So I would recommend anyone messaging a manager directly, just to make sure that you're very clear about the value you add. So again, it's productizing yourself and shortly and concisely projecting that value up front, remove the objection barrier and then show the value through some metrics. I did the same thing for a very similar company. I actually worked with one of your competitors where we grew NRR from 106% to 125%. And you're like, oh yeah, I should have a chat with this person,
I think that's exactly my point, right? I'm specifically for this role that I've been recruiting for recently, I'm looking for a strategic CSM. They're going to have some of our biggest accounts, like enormous ARRs, where they're talking to VPs and execs and C-levels. So, and I'm a VP, right? So send me your best message. How are you going to get my attention? And when it's like, hey, I'd love to set up 15 minutes to chat about this role, so would I, but I haven't got 15 minutes. And I certainly haven't got 15 minutes when you haven't told me what's in it for me. So that doesn't really show me that you are good at engaging your customers, or that you've delivered outcomes in that way, if that's your pitch to a VP at a business whose attention you want, essentially. So if you're thinking about it, if you're a CSM and you're looking for a job as a CSM, give me your value prop. How are you going to engage me? Because that's what your job will be if I hire you. So show me that skill. It's a really great way of doing it. And I always align it to... I've seen a lot of talk about how salespeople run recruitment like a sales process, where they're cold PG, cold call, value prop, dropping in nurture flow. I fully believe that about CSMs. Like, if you
Yeah.
want to demonstrate how good of a CSM you are, grab my attention, because I'm an exec and I've got a back-to-back calendar all week.
Yeah.
Barge in, show me what
Yeah.
you've got.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I can I ask this question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything goes. We can edit it. What's the worst? What's the worst thing you've seen through this process? I was thinking
worst
too
thing
specifically then, but actually we can be quite broad about it.
I think the worst thing is that upfront lack of value, and it
Yeah.
almost comes off as arrogance.
Right. Yeah.
Like, if the first thing in my LinkedIn inbox is, I want half an hour of your time to explore this more. To your point, like literally what you just said, I'm like, why would I give you half an hour of my time? I don't have half an hour. And if I did have half an hour, I wouldn't want to spend it chatting about a job spec with you when you can just read the job spec that took me 2 hours to write.
Yeah.
And I think it doesn't come off well. It's not a great first introduction. It's nothing about me. There's nothing about what's in it for me. There's nothing about why I should want to do this. And it comes off as, I demand a response from you, essentially.
Yeah. Agreed.
And that kind of rubs me up the wrong way. I'm like,
Do you
you
know,
haven't really thought about me at all.
the disappointing thing is, and it's kind of hard to say this as a recruiter, because the expectation is, as a recruiter, you've got to speak to everyone, etc. But again, our time is incredibly limited.
Yeah.
And what I find is, even when I go back to as many people as I can, but I cannot respond to everyone, particularly when they're out of the country applications or messages. I can't respond to them because it's the same kind of copy and paste message, and I might get 200 messages in a couple of days if we put a new role out, for example. But the really disappointing thing, it sounds like a bit of a moan, but it's the almost level of, it's not aggression, but it's like disappointment and almost frustration that I'm not prepared to have a conversation for them to talk me round to why they're right for a job that I can clearly see on paper through my 12 years of recruitment experience, a lot of it within SaaS and CS, that they're not aligned. Because if you can't summarize value concisely in your CV even, and I can see you haven't worked in property tech and it's an essential requirement for this role in the last 10 years, then it's like, there's no point in us talking about this role, and it ends up becoming a coaching session, and I spend 20 minutes coaching and not charging anyone anything, and then losing out on time speaking to a candidate that could be perfect for the job. So it's really difficult. And I think when you're in a niche like CS and you do understand the market, you do have to value your time and kind of protect it as much as possible. And it's, when you're a hiring manager and you're allocating 20-30% of your time to recruitment, and the rest is team, customers, growth, strategy, board meetings, yada yada yada, if they can't see past that, then you have to realize the interview process starts when you send a message, not when you send your CV. It's when you interact with the business in any way, shape or form, you are being assessed. So you have to think about your approach. That's my TED talk on it, but
I totally agree, and I think it comes back to the whole kind of spray and pray approach that some people might choose to go for, and I get it. Like I said, the market's tough, but I feel like you're more susceptible to that frustration when your approach is apply for everything and hope that something lands. Yeah. Whereas if you took the time to really strategically go in for the things where you thought you could win, and you loaded the value up front, and you sent a really cool message. I feel like maybe that frustration would be less apparent. But certainly some of the messages that I've had have had the same level of kind of tone to them. And I'm like, I can't really help. I want to reply to everybody because that's the sort of person I am. But I can't help you with everything.
And you won't always get a response back when you've taken the time to respond as well. And that's quite disappointing, because again, you might not be right for a role now, but in a couple of years' time, you may move to another business and they may have built a really good impression or a really bad impression, and that does unfortunately follow you. And messages, because I've been in the same situation, messages will stay on LinkedIn forever. So all you've got to do is open it up and be like, oh, this person was really bloody rude to me 2 years ago. I'm not going to entertain that conversation. I'm not saying we're that fickle, you know?
No, but like it's a small market. It's
Yeah.
I'm always surprised at how people pop up and I'm like, oh, I know you. I worked with you 5 years ago. Or you're going like one of my team in an old job left to go to a company that I'd never heard of, and I looked them up and I'm like, oh, you're going to work for my mate, and I'm like, it's such
Yeah.
a closed ecosystem. We're so incestuous in that sense
Yeah.
that keep that in mind. That would be my top tip.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. It's a very small segment of SaaS, and everyone knows each other. All you have to do is go to an event, which I highly recommend anyone who's in CS or any GTM function, like go to these, you know, SaaS events, customer conference, even things like Pulse. They're just really good networking opportunities, and you actually get to see how close knit all these people are. And that's a really good hiring strategy, really. One for hiring managers, because you can see talent face to face, but also if you want to project yourself positively in front of people that might be hiring, then you know, make the effort, like get out there and network.
100%.
You obviously, we've talked about kind of bad messaging. Is there like a standout, like metrics based, wow, that's an awesome message, I've got to speak to this person, even though they're not perfectly on paper aligned?
Yes, and it's personalization. So I've had a couple of people that have sent me messages about things like, and there's ways of doing this at scale which come across as really cheesy, and it's kind of like AI BDR 101.
Yeah.
Where they like pull out a LinkedIn post from 2 years ago and send you this. Like I had one the other day that was like, oh, you speak German, you must enjoy Schadenfreude, and I'm like, what?
Or they say, hey, lamps.
Yeah, hey. And I'm
a bit
like,
too
no.
familiar.
Or there was one, I had one that was really good. That was like, I saw you went to university in Cardiff. You must have been to Chippy Lane. And I'm like, well, firstly, I have. But if you'd have asked me my opinions on a battered burger, I'd have replied. Because that's a good level of personalisation, like a human level.
Yeah.
So the people that haven't been a right fit for the role, but the ones I've had really good conversations with, and the ones that I'm prepared to, you know, when roles come across my door, send them in their direction because it's more aligned to what they're looking for, are the people that have like actually connected with me as a person, rather than a blurb and then a headshot and then a cover letter. And I'm like someone who's reached out and said, like, I had a really great conversation with a candidate who also really likes yoga, so we had a chat about that, and that was really good. And I was like, okay, so that's a connection, that's a human connection, and we can move forward. And this isn't the right role for you, but you know, like I said, it's a small community. I know lots of people that are hiring, kind of thing. So that's a positive interaction. So it's personalization done well. I would say
I did yoga once, but it was goat yoga.
Just the once.
Yeah.
Goat yoga. Oh, nice.
Yeah. I didn't realise how dead goats are behind the eyes as well. Like terrifying. And they just stare at you, and they just chew while they're staring at you, and there's nothing behind their eyes. It's not like a dog or a cat or something. Just see if I can find.
They are quite.
Definitely going to cut some footage into this.
Yeah, you totally should. They're a little bit suspicious. I grew up on a farm, and the goat was always shifty. You could never tell what the goat was up to. It was always up to something it shouldn't have been as well.
So you're not vegetarian then? So when someone mentioned, oh, you are. So when they mentioned about the battered burger as well, it's even worse, right?
Well, when I was at uni, I was not a vegetarian. But that's what I mean. I'm like, so if you take a fact about me and then Google it and then copy and paste the first thing, I'm like, it just sticks out like a sore thumb. But if you actually have a connection, like if somebody had messaged me and gone, oh, you went to uni in Cardiff, you know, how did you get on at Bounce on a Thursday at Walkabout? That's a conversation starter, right? That's specific. But just like, oh, you've been to Cardiff, do you like Junction 33 on the M4, is not particularly exciting.
Agreed. I thought, oh, I do actually have. Look.
Yeah, that's a vibe, man. I don't know why, like, goat yoga is like a thing, because goats are just not very interactive.
Look at it.
Yeah,
It's
I love
kind
that
of
they're
stuck with
inside
me.
as well.
This is the thumbnail.
That is the thumbnail. You normally do.
It winked.
Yeah, that. I'd sleep with one eye open if I were you. That goat knows where you live.
Just a hoof hitting the window.
Goat yoga's normally in like a field. I love that they actually put it in a studio.
But it's a really random location because I live on the south coast, so I'm near Southampton. and it's not a rural area where there's like, I'm sure there is loads of farmland, but it's quite densely populated in this hall. So they've obviously ushered all the goats in there. It's weird. I don't know.
That's random.
But you can do it in London. There's loads of places in London. So I had this very conversation with a candidate the other day randomly, which is probably why it's still in my head. And they were like, oh, there's loads of places in London. I did a quick search, and there's goat yoga, puppy yoga, cat yoga.
I mean, I have a dog and a cat, so I don't feel like that wouldn't be a good experience for me. Because every time, like, it's like the thud of the mat hitting the floor, and my cat's like, "What are you doing?
Yeah.
Can I get involved?" I'm like, I'd rather you didn't. I'd really rather you didn't. So I don't see the appeal myself. But the goat, I like. The goat's a vibe.
Massive deviation from recruitment here. All these value add, topics for candidates. If you want to calm down, slow down, and rethink your application process, do a bit of goat yoga, reassess the landscape, and then go again.
100%.
That's it.
But it's like, that's the kind of conversation you want to have with somebody, right? You're much more likely to make a great first impression if you've got those random tangent stories. You can go, oh, I saw this, and here's how that relates to me. Yeah. And I don't know if that's just how I work, because I like having random chats with people. But
well, do you know what?
Those are the people that got through the noise, to be honest.
Yeah, and so something that I like when we onboard business, we perform incredibly well on the accounts that we support in terms of not sending many CVs. And again, sounds like a plug, maybe it is, but we have a metric of we don't send any more than 5 CVs, and within those 5 profiles, we're expecting an offer. And I think 19 days was the last kind of average send a CV to get someone joining a business, or certainly actioning their notice, which is like 1 to 3 months at the moment. And I think part of that is down to like we obviously understand CS, but it's the human element, and like really getting to know the decision maker, and just having a chat, and getting a feel for if they're in the office, what does that mean? Like, what's important to you culturally when when you're hiring, and just it's those little things, like having random conversations and getting a feel for, well, the CEO is actually a really great guy because, or she's awesome because they do the following, and then you're like, oh, you scuba dive as well, or you do this and you do that, and when we send CVs across, like, it's just those little additional lines where you say, also, this person's an avid scuba diver, so you might better exchange travel tips or something, random like that. And I think that's missing a lot of the time. Like you said, it's that personalization piece, which, because of social media now, there's so much information out there on people. Do a 5-minute search. A lot of people's social media profiles are open as well. Gets a bit Big Brother then, but you can get information that. Yeah. I don't know how I'd actually respond though if someone was like, "Oh, I was on your Instagram page and I saw the following." It might be a bit weird as a hiring manager. I don't know. What do you think about that? I saw you've got a cat, and they send you a picture of them holding their cat.
Oh no, I would love that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
that's what I mean.
Me in.
But some people that would absolutely bomb, wouldn't it?
Yeah, no, I get that it would. I think it definitely depends on the person. I mean, as a hiring manager, I wouldn't go onto somebody's Instagram and I wouldn't go looking, because I'm really aware of that.
Throughout the whole process.
No, because I'm well aware of that bias thing. I think LinkedIn is fair game. I think Insta and others are not. And as a hiring manager, I wouldn't. If somebody sent me something to their LinkedIn, I mean, that's different, but I don't know if anybody would do that. I try and not do it as a hiring manager, to be honest. But if a recruiter was sending me a CV and was like, oh, if you look on their Instagram, it turns out they actually really like base jumping, I'd be like, oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah. So I'm not against it, but I don't think I would go actively looking for it myself.
It's a difficult one, actually, isn't it? Because you get, let's say you've got a 4-stage process, and if we're generous, it's 4 to 4.5 hours of time, intense time with that individual. So there's only so much you can find out, because everyone's on their best behavior, right? And as a business, you're exposed because you've got Glassdoor, you've got LinkedIn, you've got all of the kind of Trustpilot, all of the G2 reviews, everything that's kind of out there in the ecosystem. A candidate's there to assess and judge you, and then they'll start to look at other people. They'll probably check out their social media, all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing for you to look at them in a bit more detail, and that, but making decisions based on what they did maybe 5 or 6 years ago is probably a bit tricky. But then, what if they've got pretty extreme kind of, can't really think, but just something really inappropriate on there?
That's a really good point.
That's
a really good point.
It's a massive topic at the moment. What if they had an OnlyFans link?
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah.
I think there's the concept of like, this is my job and this is my life, right? So if you take me, for example, if I post professional stuff on LinkedIn because it's a professional network, on my LinkedIn profile, you can go to my website and you can see that I teach yoga.
Yeah.
You can get onto my yoga Instagram from that, and all of those things link together.
Yeah.
If anybody stumbled upon my personal Instagram, I don't think there's anything on there that's that controversial, but I think that's different. That's somebody going out of their way to kind of go looking for.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have a problem with somebody who had an OnlyFans, because there's nothing wrong with that. I don't hold any judgment towards that. Also, it's not, if they put it on their GitHub profile, maybe that would be a bit inappropriate, but like, live your life, do your thing.
Yeah.
I think what I wouldn't want to find is that somebody had, or I wouldn't want to go looking for stuff on the off chance. Like,
it's really
I'm old enough to have been in the office when we went through the Brexit debate, right? And it just wasn't.
Yeah.
Like, I'm up for it, but it was a very emotive topic, and I'm like, hey, sometimes we just know too much about other people, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't really have any reflection, and I can take that bias and I can put it on somebody, and it's really unfair for lots of reasons.
Yeah.
So I'm like, let's try and keep it separate. But it is a really good point, and you're right. There's so many ways of you as a candidate deciding how you feel about me.
Yeah.
That maybe it is fair game. But I do think in general, I mean, the one thing I would say to my teenage nieces is, you can't delete stuff that you put online.
Yeah.
It's going to be there forever. It'll follow you around. So be careful, kids.
Yeah. I think it's a really, there was no intention to talk about it, but it just came to mind, and even now I'm thinking, like, you obviously have to be very careful when assessing people based on, political views, religious views, all that type of stuff. There's protected characteristics, and you don't want to fall into the camp of being biased for any of those reasons.
Yeah.
But there is that extreme end of anything, political violence and all that type of stuff. And if you were reading that on their social media profile and it's a recent thing, it's like, it does change in my mind anyway, and I'll speak really openly, it would change how I feel about the how I would feel about if my client did the same thing and saw that person. So if I was a CS leader and I had a CSM and I was like, oh, he said something a bit weird actually, and then I jumped on, or she, not to just beat down on men here, or she, and
it's always men.
it's always men, political. And then that client went online and they were like, oh, there's actually something behind that now. I think of the repercussions, and I'll tell a really dreadful story, and I might cut this out, but we had a candidate many years ago when I was working for another firm, when I was working for an agency, and the guy was breezing the interview process, and we didn't do the social media checks, but he had a gap in his CV and like gave us reasons. We shared that with the client. They felt iffy about it. They searched him, and he was actually imprisoned, but he'd spent his time for something very inappropriate, which I don't even want to mention. But the client then called us and said, this is not someone we can have in the business because, and that was quite an uncomfortable conversation. So I know I'm not trying to change your mind here. I guess it's just, this is what discussions are about, right? It's not as clear cut.
Maybe my naive bias is that I'm a reasonable-ish judge of character. I totally get your point, and I think as we go forward, it'll probably end up being part of like reference checking. Because you got to make sure, right? And it's not, it's, I suppose for like 80-90% of people, we all have different opinions. We're all grown up enough to know that they're different and to just get on with it anyway, because we're all people. But then there's that maybe 10% of people that their opinions are troubling and not acceptable. And often you find that, for me anyway, that tends to come out in like a culture interview. I remember finding out that one of my old team listened to the Joe Rogan podcast, and I was like, I'm disappointed more than anything else. But he was like, no, I'm just researching other people's opinions. And I was like, no, that's fair. It's completely fair. And I don't think that we all have to have the same opinions either.
No.
So, but yeah, it's a really interesting topic, actually. I hadn't thought about it.
You want a really diverse team where you don't want a cookie cutter, carbon copy team, because that's not what your clients are. They're all going to be different. And I think it's really important to have that. But yeah, okay, we'll move on from that conversation. But just to be clear, from a recruitment compliance perspective, things like, you know, spent convictions, etc. I'm not talking about, you know, things. I'm not talking about adjusting a fair recruitment process based on bias. I'm talking about things that you could find out which should be declared that haven't been declared. But again, referencing would bring a lot of the tricky bits to the forefront.
You'd hope.
You would hope, yeah, cool. What do you think separates kind of good from great when it comes to CSMs in general?
Ooh, the ability to get to the point.
Like my question then.
No, succinct question. I think the point is that it's always better to have a pause to think about how you're going to phrase something than it is to just talk your way out of a problem or talk your way into a problem. In every conversation that I've had with CSMs that I work with, have worked with, have interviewed, the ones that really stand out are the ones that have a point, make the point, get to it, and then pause and wait. And wait for you to respond. And I think that's, particularly from this hiring process, answer the question specifically. Don't try and answer it with 7 things you've done in the last year that are amazing. Make a point, make it well, and land it properly. Yeah. And I think that's what separates good from great. Yeah,
awesome. So what's your one piece of advice then for hiring managers right now looking to recruit from your lessons of hiring now and also previously?
Put the prep in. I've been a candidate in plenty of places, and I've seen other hiring managers do this, where they rock up to an interview, haven't really read the CV, haven't thought about the kind of questions they want to ask.
Yeah.
And it makes your candidates feel a bit shit, to be honest, because they feel like you don't care, and why would they want to work for you? And 2, I think you have a much better conversation if you have at least 2 or 3 things you want to drill into.
Yeah.
And you get to the point a lot better. Generic kind of tell me what's your name, where'd you come from kind of thing. It's not particularly exciting.
What's your greatest strength? What's your greatest weakness? Yeah.
Tell me about a time when you haven't done. Like, if you ever start a question with "tell me about a time," I'm like, you can probably be a bit more creative than that.
Yeah.
And it all does come down to prep. And I'm not talking loads of prep. I'm like 20 minutes before an interview, I'll go through the CV again because I've usually read it when the interview gets scheduled.
Yeah.
I'll pull out 2 or 3 things I want to drill into, and then I'll see how the conversation goes.
Yeah.
But just doing that in advance and not running in, because I can't stand lateness. That really triggers me. I'm like, it's an interview. Somebody is giving you their time for free to see if they want to work for you and that you want to work with them. Turn up on time, have some questions prepped, and just don't answer. Like, treat them like a human. I think that's probably my biggest tip.
Yeah. Do you use any technology when recruiting, like beyond like an ATS? But do you have anything that supports with building questions or building the job spec?
Let's see. Building the job spec, did a couple of rewrites with Claude. A couple of thought kind of exercises. Nothing specific for like recruitment on that. Mm-hmm. And then as ATS, obviously, but not anything more than that. I've also been a bit hesitant to use like the old AI note taker. I don't know why. I think I'm still, because I use it for literally everything else. I haven't really had it in the interviews, and it's probably a good idea because I've been furiously writing notes.
Yeah.
But no, nothing specific.
So flipping it around from a candidate's perspective, then what's the one piece of advice you would give a candidate in the market right now to optimize their success of converting applications into interviews?
Specificity. Make sure that you actually fit the profile. If you do fit the profile, come up with 3 bullet points that demonstrate how you fit the profile with value, right? And don't forget the metrics. I care about metrics. I'm a commercial leader.
Yeah.
And you will be asked to give somebody an elevator pitch of what you've been up to for the last 5, 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
Practice it. Like I'm always surprised that when I go to people, okay, give me like a 5-minute overview. and they can't, and it goes on for 15 minutes, or it goes nowhere, or it's too short and it misses like all of the notes, it misses all the beats.
Or they say, what do you want to know?
Exactly. You've read my CV. And I'm like, mate, this is standard interview 101. Tell me about yourself.
Yeah.
You know that's coming. So practice.
Covering letters, yes or no?
I don't think they're necessary. I think a really good CV is enough. I did interview somebody off the back of a loom they sent me, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
And I thought it was much more personal. But typically, I think it's unfair to ask people for cover letters because it's an extra step that you don't really need, and I haven't read any recently.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think they're necessary.
Yeah, I think CVs need to be reworked. Totally different topic, but they are like the elevator pitch element. I think should be in your CV. You know, we have the summary part, and usually it's a seasoned CS leader with 25 years of experience, etc. Not saying that's the worst, but being able to have a really clear, like, this is the value, and it might be, you know, I've taken series or pre-seed businesses through to, you know, to acquisition, through to IPO, worked with multiple PE firms, and you, like, name drop, revenue drop, and I think that's lacking a lot of the time. It's actually quite fluffy. You know, experienced CS leader who's operated as the voice of the customer for the last 15 years. It's very AI plugged, isn't it?
Totally. I'm like, tell me what you've done. Tell me what the outcome was.
Yeah.
And if you've got like a little pie chart that shows how you spend your day, like I spend my day answering emails and stuff like that. I like them, but I'm like, this is a waste of space.
Yeah. I was like, I quite like the idea of it, but yeah, if it's things like,
but it's kind of a bit generic, and I'm like,
well,
okay, but
on that idea, it just made me think, if you had, because I think someone built I saw a CV where there was almost like a BI report at the top, and it broke down kind of their percentage of being like revenue focused, technical. It kind of gave almost like a pie chart of that, and then it had like a results graph on there to show what their NRR was. It actually had all of their results across roles summarized, and I was like, yeah, that's solid, because it's kind of everything in the data, and then they summarized it in points in their CV. So it was like, so just be different.
That's better than saying you're data driven, right? Is actually having some data. Yeah,
again, the interview starts, right? The second they're looking at your CV, the second they're reviewing your message, all the things that you say to them, i.e. I've got super attention to detail, and there's grammatical errors in your CV, or there's spelling mistakes, and the lines are formatted. There's different text in there. So, well, you're lying. You're a liar. You're lying to me.
Totally. Although, I mean, it could be a bit of a double-edged sword, because I'm like, if you send me a graph of how good your results have been, that's the first place I'm going. I'm like, talk me through this. Explain. So,
but also, your job as an interviewer a lot of it should be spent on really trying to connect with that individual to work out, you know, are you going to connect with our customers? Because when you're hiring for your business, but you're also hiring a CSM to work with your key customers, and it's like they're almost, sometimes I think there's a case, and it wouldn't work because well, depending on the organization, but sometimes I think there's a case, if you've got a really good relationship with your customer, to get them involved in that process. I think that would be, particularly if they already have a lead CSM and they're like, look, we want to scale this up and bring someone else in, so we're actually hiring. I think that'd be quite an interesting exercise.
I think that would be quite interesting.
I might try and champion that.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. And I think that's one of the reasons why I always say to people, practice your elevator pitch, because it's not that I haven't read your CV, because I have. I want to see how you present yourself. I want to see how you introduce yourself. That's a key skill. You're a CSM.
Yeah.
So
imagine if your customer's like, you need to hire that person, I want them to work on our account. How powerful that would be, eh?
Yeah.
Accountability shift.
Like them, though? What if you didn't like them? That's
Well,
interesting.
I used to work for a telemarketing company years ago. It was a marketing agency, but they had a telemarketing arm as well.
Yeah.
And the clients would effectively interview telemarketers within the business. So they already worked for the company. You had like a stock of them. Sounds terrible. And they kind of pick the ones that they feel would suit the account the most. And the benefit to the telemarketer is some accounts paid better commission, so they were
Yeah.
quite interesting.
That's the thing, right? It's right person, right place, right time. Just because this isn't the right company or role for you doesn't mean that it isn't somewhere else. So it's all about that fit.
Yeah, and you're well connected, right? So you might interview someone and go, they'd be really good for the person that dropped me a message 2 months ago that we didn't have anything for, that sort of thing.
Exactly.
Last couple of questions. I've kept you for long enough. It's gone really quick, actually, 55 minutes. Who is your biggest inspiration within SaaS customer success, however you want to break it down?
Good question. Oh, there's...
You're not allowed to say Nick Meta either.
Fair. He is a Swiftie, isn't he?
He's good.
Not that I am, so that's fair. You mentioned Dave. I think Dave Jackson's really interesting. I love the fact that all of the stuff he talks about is value driven, it's quantifiable, and he very much speaks to that whole your first customer is your business. And if you're not obsessively focused as a business about your customers' outcomes, how are you going anywhere as a business? I think that's really cool. I think there's so many.
Have you read his book?
Have I read his book? I haven't read his book, actually.
Dave, you need to send Emma a copy of your book.
I haven't read his book. I can't believe that.
It's a good book.
I bet it is. I bet it's a great book. I'm just trying to think of some other names that I can drop in really, really quickly. I think Christy Falterosso also has some really solid points on leadership, and particularly CS leadership. I think we often get a bit muddled as CS leaders as to whether we're CS first or leaders first. And I think she has a great blend of like, if you want to be a leader, this is how you do it. But then this is customer success. So
yeah, awesome, cool. What's your biggest gripe in the industry at the moment?
It's still always NPS. No one gives a shit about NPS. Talk to me about something else. Like every time someone asks me about CSAT, I'm like, don't care. It's not actionable. It's not an outcome. It's a product metric. Yeah. Go away.
I think you put something up about this, didn't you? Everything looked great, and the client still churned, basically.
Yeah, they will do. It has no predictive revenue metric based on it, and I'm like, and the people that you ask to do your NPS survey are not the people who make decisions, and it's a product metric, if anything. I'm not interested.
What would you replace it with if there was like a direct what's better?
I think the concept of NPS is lazy. It's not a metric. If your customers are engaged, you'll have engagement across different levels of your business. So you'll have probably your kind of user level engaged in your product process. You'll have an exec level to exec level engagement. Your champion will be engaged. They'll understand how to explain the benefit of your product to their business. It's a multi-tiered thing. And if you want feedback, because customer feedback is like the most amazing thing that you can get. If you want it, you need to be specific. You need to stop being lazy and go and ask for it from specific people on specific topics. Just asking them how they rate you out of 1 to 10 is pointless. Absolutely pointless.
I was going to say, do you think it's just it became a lazy metric because you had lazy individuals relying on it? Because data's data, right? And it might be it's
easy to quantify. It's the same as CSAT. I'm like, just if it says a nice thing, and this is my biggest issue with NPS, if it says something great, the CEO will be like, NPS, everybody loves it. But if it says something terrible, no one will talk about it. And it's a metric for a metric's sake. It's not actionable. It doesn't measure what everyone thinks it measures, and it is a vanity product thing. And it doesn't tell me anything about anything. And customer feedback is so important that you want to make sure you get it right. And it's definitely not NPS.
Cool. I have one more question to wrap up. So you obviously have a ton of experience. That wasn't an age thing. I'm definitely older than you.
I don't know.
So, in all your years of wisdom within customer success, what's the one thing you wish you could rewind time and go and tell yourself when you were getting into the industry?
Ask the difficult question. There is, and I see it a lot from CSMs, we tend to be, certainly when it comes to hard questions to ask our customers, quite risk averse.
Right.
And like they're always forecasting risk, and everybody will see it. And I remember being like this when I was first starting out. I didn't want to ask customers about things like value and ROI because I was terrified they wouldn't find one. And I'm like, but if they don't, it's better to know that up front. Just ask the question.
Yeah.
The worst thing that's going to happen is that somebody won't answer it, or that, you know, you'll get an answer that you weren't expecting or didn't want. I'm like, just ask. Because it is always better to know. Always better.
Yep. Otherwise, you bury your head in the sand, and then you get unexpected churn, and you're left scratching your head thinking, what could we have done? And that's probably the key driver. Awesome.
Indeed. Just ask.
Awesome. Well, look, thank you so much for giving up an hour of your time.
No worries.
I hope I did specify an hour originally as well. You're looking at getting the CEO's nudging you for a call, and I'm just there waffling on. But no, it's been really great.
We're talking about goats. It's all good.
And I know we've had back and forth for probably years now, actually, haven't we? So it's really good to finally have a good sit down and catch up. And I think there's some, you know, really, really useful stuff in there for people watching, both candidates and hiring managers. So thank you so much.
No worries.